Hi, everyone. Welcome to another AIRR-NA Global Guidance Summit session. As we wait for everyone to join, we'll do a little introduction and get started here. So welcome to Quick Trip Study in Ireland. So you're here to learn about opportunities in the Emerald Isle and learn what opportunities await you and your students and families that you work with if they're looking at Ireland for their future degrees. So we're going to go over a bit of everything about Ireland, about who it's a good fit for, entry requirements and application processes and student life. And you'll hear from two very experienced people in the field. Maggie and I have been working for Irish institutions for combined 21 years. So we've got a lot of experience working with students headed over to Ireland and happy to talk to you about opportunities over there. So if you don't know me already, my name is Jim Pierson. I'm the Senior Regional Manager for University College Dublin, Ireland's largest university based in Dublin, and I live in the Chicagoland area.
And I'm Maggie Cardosi. I'm the regional manager for North America. I am based in the Buffalo area in New York State, and I work for University College Cork, which is located down along Ireland's southern coast. And if you are from Cork, you will tell everybody that it is the real capital of Ireland. So there you go, Jim.
And if you're anyone else, you'll know that Dublin is the real capital of Ireland, but we love all of our cities equally.
Yes, we
So
do.
welcome to everyone. If you have been to Ireland or plan to go over anytime soon, you'll be very well welcomed. And the Céad Mile Fáilte is 100,000 welcomes and, kind of stands in for Ireland's hospitality and welcomeness. I apologize that Maggie and I don't have an Irish accent for you to enjoy during this session, but it is a beautiful place with a lot to offer you. We have a lot of great information here for you. We just want to clarify that this is intended for non-EU students. They're very different application processes, entry requirement processes for EU and Irish students compared to students that are classified as non-EU, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And of course, we're going to do our best to equally represent all the institutions in Ireland, but everywhere is a little bit different, and every institution has their own policies. If you want to ask a question about any individual institution or something specific, you can reach out to Maggie and I after the session. We can put you in touch with our colleagues at other institutions as well because we know someone at every place in Ireland.
Pretty much. So, talk a little bit about why Ireland might be a destination that would be interesting to your students. First off, there is an incredibly vibrant academic environment around Ireland. It's a small place. It's about the size of the state of Indiana, I usually say. So you can go east to west in about 3 hours, north to south in about six or so, depending on the roads. But for that small of a place, it is vibrant both culturally but also academically. So across the country, you're going to find lots of different types of academic programs that might be particularly unique to Ireland, or at least in the way that we teach them. Also, the university settings for such a small country are quite diverse in and of themselves. So I know we talk a lot about right fit in terms of university type and size with our students if they're looking within the US. That is absolutely true in Ireland as well. We have universities that would be, akin to, large state universities, also more like small liberal arts institutions and everything in between. So there is something for everybody. And the quality of our education system in Ireland is really top notch. So the universities that we represent and that we count as our colleagues are ranked in the top 1 to 2% worldwide. And a lot of the degree programs that we would be offering are going to be very specialized degree programs that could be 3 or 4 year direct entry programs, and then also would offer master's degrees in just one calendar year. We also offer a lot of practical learning that would be enveloped in a lot of these programs. So whether that's a work placement, field work, research, or internship, something like that, like I said, would be enveloped within that curriculum. And along with the kind of high quality of the education, our employability rates are quite high, up in the 90s or even into almost 100% for some or many of our programs. And this is also something students can look at as well as, after they finish up, not just being able to get a job, back home, but they can also qualify to work back in Ireland after they graduate. So students can remain in Ireland for up to 12 months after completing a bachelor's degree and up to 24 months after completing a master's. And like I just said, our programs are internationally recognized, so they can take those anywhere in the world where they want to stick around in Ireland or go home or go anywhere else. And As I mentioned, Ireland is a small place, like I said, but we really do have a pretty significant global footprint for such a small country. So we are home to many top companies in many different sectors, whether that's ICT, gaming, pharmaceuticals, financial firms, medical devices, and others. Many of these top multinational companies choose Ireland as their home, and they work directly with our universities in many cases to develop programs that have practical implications. And they are hiring students from those programs directly into the workforce afterwards. So really nice, lots of names that you might recognize. Some of them, Google, Apple, IBM, Pfizer, Pepsi, LinkedIn, KPMG, and many others. So like I said, small country, big footprint.
We'll talk about some of the more practical aspects of coming to Ireland now. This will be maybe a frustrating part of the conversation because a lot of it will be it depends and it'll be very different at each institution, but we can give you some general rules, guidelines, and things to keep in mind as you have students exploring the Emerald Isle. So generally applications will open a bit later than you'd be used to for compared to US institutions. So applications open in October or November depending on the institution, and they will remain open sometimes into May or early June or even later. UCD's application is technically still open for September, so if you have a student that wants to start at UCD in 2 or 3 weeks, let me know. Short time frame, but anything is possible. I would say that most Irish institutions have a rolling admissions process, and some courses can close while others might still have capacity. So you'll see that vary depending on the competitiveness of the course. So medicine, veterinary medicine, computer science is probably closed in the winter, where some of our arts courses might still be open into the summer. Some institutions in Ireland are on the Common App, but all institutions accept direct applications. We don't have a countrywide application system, nothing like UCAS in the UK or even provincial level ones like in Ontario. So it is direct applications to each institution. There are many opportunities for clinical courses in Ireland, medicine, dentistry, those are physiotherapy, those are great courses that have great opportunities to study at an undergraduate level. For medicine and dentistry specifically, Atlantic Bridge is our partner that works with students from the US and Canada to help them apply to all the medical schools with one application. So it's similar to the Common App of Ireland for going into clinical programs. So I highly recommend for students that are interested in going to medicine or dentistry to look into Atlantic Bridge as their application option. Generally, I think decisions are returned pretty quickly. Like I said, it's a rolling process, so you can have students hear back within about 3 to 5 weeks of applying. So it can be a pretty quick process. And all of this is applicable to US, Canadian students you might be working with. The big green box with all the text on the right-hand side of the screen is the big asterisk that this applies to non-EU students. Ireland, it can be frustrating for many students because we have strict requirements for both residency and citizenship to be eligible for EU fees and then the EU application process. So generally, students need to have lived in the EU or their families had to have lived in the EU or Ireland for 3 of the 5 years before they apply to university to qualify for EU fees. If you qualify for EU fees, that's great. It's a lot cheaper than paying non-EU fees. But if you qualify for EU fees, you apply through the CAO, which is the application system all students use in applying from Ireland and from the EU. If you apply through the CAO, you don't find out where you get into university until right about now. So those students that graduated high school a few months ago are just finding out where they got into university this week. So it's not a great process if you do qualify for EU fees, but all that to say, if you have a student that has dual citizenship that might have lived in Europe at some point, they should reach out as early as possible to someone like myself or Maggie to double check what the process is, what fees classification they have, and what application pathway they should use. As far as entry requirements, this is again another one of those broad, kind of vague slides where it'll be a little different for everyone. The most important thing about this is entry requirements depend on both the institution they're applying to and the subject that they're studying. So we have entry requirements that are specific to their course, engineering, art history, business, econ, and finance. Those all have different entry requirements, and it depends on what they want to study as to what the requirements will be. So we don't have general requirements for the institution as a whole. You can generally see that the range of requirements will be from both very accessible for students, like a 3.0 GPA can be the minimum requirement for many courses at many institutions, where going into our more competitive courses like law or engineering and especially medicine, veterinary medicine can be a 3.7 in many test scores or an IB of a 39 or more. So you'll see that range across all the institutions. Generally, for most courses, all we really look at are academics. Some courses might have additional requirements like letters of recommendation, a personal statement, a portfolio, experiential learning, especially if you're going into medicine. You should have experience in, a medical field somehow through volunteering or an internship or work experience. But generally, we're really focused on those educational requirements and making sure students meet the published requirements that are set out for the course that they're applying to. So it is very specific, and generally I'd say entry requirements are very rigid. You have to meet the requirements exactly. If the requirement is a 3.5 GPA or a 1200 on the SAT and you get a 3.49 or an 1190, you won't get into the course. There is no additional letter or essay you can write that will change our mind. At UCD specifically, I can say that for sure, that you have to meet those requirements. And if you don't meet them, there's nothing we can do for you. However, it is very transparent. So our entry requirements are very transparent. Students and families and counselors know exactly what the requirements are before they even start the application. So as opposed to the US context where requirements are pretty vague and kind of hard to understand, for us, it's very set out in black and white that it's easy to know where you stand. To try to simplify those requirements, we put together this table that gives you an idea of what a competitive applicant profile might look like for UCD or University College Cork in different subject areas. So this will vary quite a bit, again, across institutions and subjects, but you can see that there's a range. Like at UCD, if you're going into the arts and humanities subjects and you want to study history, English lit, creative writing, you can get in with just a 3.2 GPA. We don't have any test requirements. We're what you'd say is test flexible. Not every course requires a standardized exam, though some do. Or you can get in with a 24 on the IB diploma. If you're coming from Canada, it'd be similar equivalencies to the Canadian level high school diplomas, all of which are on our website. If you want to go into the sciences, computer science, biology, chemistry, it can be a big step up from the arts and humanities. So 3.5 GPA, an SAT or an ACT, and at least one AP score. And additionally, if you're going into the sciences, you need to have specific grades in both a math and a lab science class. And that's the same for engineering, but it's another step up where engineering specifically requires AP Calc or Stats at UCD, as opposed to just having any AP score. And then something that we put here specifically to highlight is psychology tends to be one of the most popular major options for students when I'm at a college fair. It is very different from the US, where psychology is one of the most competitive programs to get into in Ireland. At UCD, it's as competitive as getting into medicine or veterinary medicine in a way. It's a very structured course. It has very rigid classroom sizes to meet licensure requirements. It is one of the top programs at UCD. So it's not like the general undecided social science major that it tends to be in the US. So there are really high subject requirements. And then there's a kind of fifth column in this table that would be medicine, vet med, those clinical courses that would be a step up even from psychology. Maggie, do you want to talk to UCC's requirements at all or clarify anything there?
Yeah, I mean, we just really put sets on here just to show that they can vary from program to program and university to university. And I would also like to say that we understand that some schools don't offer APs, like they've moved away from AP curriculum, or the SAT, ACT tests aren't accessible to students. We will also consider, and I'm speaking from a UCC standpoint, so you would need to check with each university on how they respond to this, but we will consider advanced courses, honors, dual enrollment, kind of those types of college credits in lieu of AP or SAT, ACT subject requirements where they benefit the student. So I guess that's just to say, stay in touch with us if you have a question and what's online doesn't necessarily make sense to you. We're happy to walk you through it.
Yeah. And one other thing that can be confusing for students and counselors, but can be to students' benefits, is many institutions like UCD, we can issue conditional offers. So if a student applies to the sciences but never took the SAT or ACT, we can give them an offer conditional on taking the SAT and getting a 1200. So it gives them another option. If they're really committed to going into the course, maybe they don't meet the requirements, they should still apply as early as possible, and then they can get a conditional offer and we'll spell out the conditions of what they need to do to meet the requirements. And maybe they'll get that conditional offer and say, actually, that's not for me. I don't want to take the SAT. I can't. We can help them apply to a different course so they can move on to another option. But the earlier they apply, the better. And then we can issue them those conditional offers that will give them an opportunity and tell them exactly what they need to meet the minimum requirements. So moving on from the admissions side of thing, money is of course a very important topic and something that is ever more challenging as things change in the U.S. and as costs rise everywhere. Um, in general, and for most students that I work with, Irish institutions are very competitive with the other university options they're considering. If a student's staying in state or in province, we Irish institutions will probably be more expensive than their local institution might be. But for a student considering out of state, out of province, other international opportunities, Ireland will be very competitive, in many cases much cheaper than you'd see for, a large public out of state institution would charge. Generally, the total cost for a full year of tuition, living expenses, everything else can be around $40,000. That's a very rough estimate and will change a lot by institution. For non-medicine programs, medicine, vet med, those have different fees, and it's much higher because it is medicine, so it can be up to $80,000 a year for medicine. But generally, that would be all of the costs for a full year of living and studying in the program. To help with that, all the Irish institutions offer scholarships. Generally, they're much more merit based as opposed to need based, so they'll be based on students' academics. But they can cover everything from small nominal scholarship of maybe 10% of tuition and fees up to full 100% tuition scholarships. You'd be less likely to see full cost of living scholarships at Irish institutions, but you can see very significant merit based tuition scholarships. To help with the rest of funding in education, students can use a variety of resources to help fund themselves. U.S. federal aid is available for students through FAFSA for all Irish universities, and many of the technical universities or colleges also accept it. So that's any of the loan programs, subsidized, unsubsidized, Parent Plus. Grants can't be used outside of the US if you're using those, so unfortunately Pell Grants don't apply in Ireland or any other country, but we also accept Canadian provincial loans and many other loan systems. And then to help support themselves or get spending money or pay for their weekend trips to Paris, students can work part-time while they're in Ireland, so up to 20 hours a week during term and 40 hours a week during winter or summer break. So students are allowed to reside in Ireland for the full 12 months that they're a student, and if they stay over the summer and get an internship, they can work up to full-time to help to support themselves while they're there.
Yep. So I'm going to go through these last couple of slides quickly so we have plenty of times for questions. But in terms of living in Ireland, outside of kind of the financial bit, there's a few different things to take into consideration. So on top of fees, students should budget around $1,500 per month to account for rent, food, travel, and entertainment. One thing to keep an eye on, like housing and tuition costs are billed separately. So you're not going to see those packaged together on university websites. So just keep an eye out for that. We do offer really fantastic housing options and purpose-built student apartments at the majority of our universities. And at the majority, they would be guaranteed for first-year international students. And then there would also be support services for students to avail of after first year to try to find their own accommodation, whether that's off campus or in the student apartments on campus. Lots of great transportation and travel links within Ireland. So you can get everywhere you want to go pretty much by train or by bus within the island. And then you can connect to Europe and other destinations via airports in Dublin, Shannon, Cork, and Belfast. If you're wanting to take, like Jim said, your nice little weekend trip to Paris. And sustainability is a huge theme on a lot of our campuses as well. So for students who are very passionate about sustainability and environmental consciousness, many of us are plastic free, and we implement lots of other measures to make sure that we keep our impact on the planet low. And a lot of the food too in Ireland is locally sourced and very delicious, and might be a little bit less in terms of cost than we might see here in the United States. Also on our campuses, you might get a lot of questions around, am I going to have the same types of activities that I would find at a US campus? Is it going to be the same feel or the same vibe? The answer is maybe, probably. In most cases, we have a lot of the same types of activities and supports that US campuses would have, although they might be called something different or might look a little bit different. So whether it's the international office, which Jim and I are both an extension of our university's international offices here in the United States, helping to advise through applications, transition to campus and beyond. That's there. There are also peer advisors, career services, different skills labs, and then also supports for students with disabilities, whether that's learning differences or physical disabilities, to make sure that they're equipped and empowered to have the best experience that they can possibly have. And also great social networks like clubs and societies and alumni networks as well. So students can be connected to their peers on campus while they're at university, and then their peers when they are out in the world. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. And then I know there are some questions in the Q&A, so maybe we'll get to those. Jim, do you want
Yeah.
to plug our AIRR-NA stuff first so people don't forget that we're around later?
Yeah, of course. That was a quick whistle stop tour of Ireland, but Maggie and I are always here to help answer more questions. And if anything has come up over the session, put it in the Q&A now, and we're happy to answer anything that has come up. And while you're typing into the Q&A right now, we'll invite you again, if you've been to other sessions, you've seen this slide many times, the many other opportunities to engage with AIRNA in the future. At the NACAC conference in Ohio coming up, AIRNA will have a reception. We invite our counselor friends to join us for a drink. You can also meet the Irish institutions. Maggie will be there and UCD will be there as well. So lots of opportunities for you to engage with us. And then for some of our regional travel, we'll be doing tours with both counselor luncheons and student fairs in Texas in November, on the East Coast in January, and on the West Coast in February. So follow the QR code or go to airna.org or reach out for more information about those tours. And as we jump into a few of the questions that came up, one of the first ones is for students applying to medicine. I heard there's a process for requesting or accessing Atlantic Bridge applications. Is that correct, or can anyone just complete it? So you do have to reach out to Atlantic Bridge to request an application. That's mostly just because Atlantic Bridge needs to verify that both you're eligible to apply, you need to be resident in North America, and that you're applying to the correct pathway, because we have both undergraduate entry medicine and graduate entry medicine. And depending on your current status or where you are in your educational pathway, one of either application might be most appropriate for you. But anyone can apply. You just have to contact them first, and then they'll send you the application and you can get started on it. So it's just making sure you're going through the correct pathway for you.
Yeah, and then another question around applying to graduate master's programs from the US and Canada. This is something that you know we also can do. So the entry requirements would be a little bit different, but the overall process is, I guess, the same. There's no centralized application process. You need to apply directly to each university. The opening dates tend to be fairly similar, rolling basis of admissions. Some programs that that fill up quickly might have earlier deadlines, but it varies in terms of the requirements from university to university. So overall, I'd say the information for the undergraduate isn't too different from the graduate. What would you say, Jim?
I think the big differentiating point is just that most of our master's programs in Ireland are 1 year, compared
Mhm.
to US is typically a 2 year program. So if you want to study, say, library and information science, that's one of our most popular majors for US students, because it's a 1 year degree compared to a standard 2 years in the US that gets you the same qualification and the opportunity to go on to work and practice much earlier. So it is a great opportunity. And I'd say generally most programs, but not all, will look for a bachelor's degree in a similar area, but sometimes there's flexibility to do a complete change of field. But it kind of depends on what you want to study and what you've studied as an undergraduate student.
Yes, and really quickly, because we're almost to time, there's a question around so can you confirm the course entry requirements we listed are minimum requirements, and how being above or substantially above might impact? So yes, what we listed would be the absolute minimum requirements. And then Jim, if you're looking at a student who say applied to arts and has like a 3.8,
So
how would that impact the decision?
a big part is that our scholarships are merit based. So meeting entry requirements for the course can get you in, but our scholarships would be even more competitive, especially the larger ones. So stronger academics would give students more opportunities for larger merit based scholarships. Generally, for UCD, at least, meeting the minimum requirements for entry is all you need to get into the course. As
Mhm.
long as you apply early enough that the course isn't closed. So that's where having rolling admissions means you do need to apply early so that a course doesn't reach capacity before you've applied. But generally, it doesn't make a difference for the admissions process where you fall, as long as you meet the requirements.
Yep. And that's for UCC as well. And our scholarships don't require separate application. So anyway, contact me for more. I hope that was helpful. And then finally, how long do students have to make their decision, especially if they're waiting on offers from other Irish universities or US or UK universities?
So UCD, generally, if a student applies during their senior year, they'll have until May 1st. So we give our offers with the same kind of May 1st decision day deadline as many US institutions. There is a lot of flexibility for extending decisions depending on what course they're going into and what capacity there is in the course, but usually they'll have until the same decision deadline as they'd have otherwise.
Yep. And then finally, this is around for an American student, what are the benefits of obtaining dual citizenship through family ties in Ireland while studying in Ireland for their bachelor's degree? No limits on work hours, of course, but would you then also qualify for home fees for a master's program? That could be tricky. I would say the having citizenship in the EU or Ireland is helpful. I think it's a nice thing to have. It won't make an impact on the bachelor's degree fees or fee status. Jim, what would you say about master's level? Do you know?
Yeah, generally it won't make a difference. It won't make a difference at undergraduate level. It could potentially qualify you a student for EU fees at master's degree level, especially if they, work for a year or two after their undergraduate degree before going into a master's program. And if you can get it, get it. You at least go through the shorter line at the airport and going through immigration. So absolutely worth it, but it may not make a huge difference at least immediately.
Yeah. I think we're just a couple minutes over time, so I think we'll leave it at that. But we are always happy to continue to engage with you. We are around and are happy to chat more. We're going to be at NACAC. But anyway, thanks for coming. I hope you found our session helpful. And if there's anything else that we can chat with you about, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks very much, everyone.